All right, greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to the Daily Space Weather. We're looking at sunspots, we're looking at Milky Way's magnetic fields, human health stories, the smAsho forum, and more. First, we're going to look at the sun at 171 angstroms. Looking at the northern portion here, we are noting that sunspot 2754 under my pointer here has degraded into an alpha class. It only has one small umbra. The trailing umbra has evaporated, so you're only going to see one dark spot right about where my pointer is if you look at it in other wavelengths. And we're just showing it in 171 angstroms here because this is the most interesting view, in my opinion. It shows the magnetic looping of the chromospheric plasma. Please leave a comment if you're sick of hearing the word plasma, as I certainly am. Here's the southern region looking at sunspot 2753. That remains more complex and more significant as it is a beta class sunspot. Chance of solar flares much higher out of this one than out of 2754, which looks like it's going to evaporate entirely as it sets on the western portion of the solar disk. There's other magnetism happening also. Let's look at the intensity gram here. And you can see this umbra up here, very small, possibly in the state of evaporating as we speak. Down here, a very different story. Significant spacing in between those two umbrae. And it doesn't look like... Oh, there's a little bit of mixing happening in the leading one right now. So that is something to keep an eye on throughout the day for sure. I also wanted to show you the stereo A coronagraph here because there could be a coronal mass ejection building right now. It's a little bit too early to really tell. But there are the date stamps. If you look on the right side here, you can see there's like a plasma undulation happening there. All this bright material in the corona kind of forming there. The Earth is out here someplace. Stereo A is about 3 months behind the Earth in terms of orbiting the sun. And this is what we use to see coronal mass ejections. There could be one building throughout the day, so if you want to look for it, check it out on the Integrated Space Weather Analysis page. We always link to that below the video. X-ray environment has not seen any B-class X-ray flares since Christmas Eve. And we're going to skip the GOES X-ray imager as there's not a lot going on there. Here's the synoptic map once again. And there's sunspot 2754, now an alpha class sunspot. And there's 2753. There are some filaments around on the disk also. And nothing really to write home about there. Thanks, everybody, viewing in on the live Twitch stream. Next, we're going to go to Helio Viewer and look at the fields, complete with your Earth scale image. And let's fade out the field so you can see the magnetic complexity associated with that sunspot. And you can see two distinct polarities associated with that sunspot. And the South Pole oriented portion leading indicates that it is a cycle 25 sunspot, just like 2754. And 2753, we'll be watching it throughout the day, as we'll be interested to see if it grows, shrinks, or stays the same. Anyway, there's the magnetism associated with that. Let's keep it going here. Radial flux remains at 73 solar flux units, just above this orange line we've drawn in. As solar minimum conditions look like they are ending, especially with those two high-latitude sunspots forming at the same time on Christmas Eve. KP index has popped up to 1, as we saw 21 hours here around Christmas. All kinds of human health effects seem to be associated with this 21 hours of KP 0. There were all kinds of issues that developed. My knee was messed up all day yesterday. No idea why. It makes no sense to me. And yeah, we're going to look at cosmic rays today because we haven't for a few days. So first, here's the apatity monitor. And really, it's a downtrend over the past 30 days at apatity. Barentsburg neutron monitor, a slight downtrend over the past 30 days as well. Next, we'll look at Athens, Greece. You know where donuts are made, right? In Greece. No, I mean Friar, Greece. Anyway, there's Athens over the past 30 days. Pretty flat there at the Athens neutron monitor. Next, we'll look at Mexico City. Tiny downtrend over the past 30 days there also. Nothing exciting happening there. Moscow usually has wild swings. Let's look at Moscow's neutron monitor. And there's Moscow. Pretty flat over the past 30 days there as well. And we'll look at Oulu, Finland, and DOMC Antarctica. DOMB Antarctica not sending data. There's Oulu, Finland. I don't know why they're not sending information from DOMB Antarctica. Maybe it took damage, as it is now the summertime down there. Anyway, there's Oulu, Finland. Quite flat in the past 30 days. And there's DOMC Antarctica sending back spotty data as well. Again, we always link to the Network of Cosmic Ray Station site below the video. So monitor them yourself. Don't take our word for it. Don't take anybody's word for it. Look up the data. And if anybody's telling you that the cosmic rays are at the max ever measured, go look at the data. It takes about 5 seconds to call BS on that. Now, that uptick in the KP index was associated with this sudden swing in the BZ, which is shown in red in the top pane here. You can see the BZ switches from +2 all the way down to -6 or something like that. And that is the field alignment direction. The BT is the total field strength, and the BZ is the angle at which it's coming. Negative BZs are associated with earthquakes at this point during the solar cycles. Let's look at the rest of the solar wind data here. 113, and that is in degrees, is the phi angle. That is the angular orientation of the incoming solar plasma. Next, we're looking at the solar wind density, which is about 5.67. And this is another coronal hole wind stream, folks. You can see the solar wind speed picks up at the same time that the solar wind density drops off. A signature of coronal hole wind stream. Here come the protons. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this solar wind speed rise a little bit higher throughout the day. It's currently at 391 kilometers per second. There's the data from ACE, looking quite similarly. Electron flux is still in a moderate to low range. GPSs should be working pretty well here, even around the equator at noon, or in normal ranges at least. There's the relativistic electrons greater than 2 mega electron volts in a low to moderate range. Here's the ionosphere map looking at the last 6 hours. And I've changed the coffee formula entirely. The French press is about to get retired, folks. Anyway, we see continued charge-up-discharge events going on in the South Pacific. And we're going to be talking about the South Pacific. My favorite ideas for New Year's Eve locations. If you're one of these people who wants to go someplace like New Orleans or Times Square for New Year's Eve, you're crazy. I want to go where there's about 4 people within 1,000 miles. Anyway, there's the GOES magnetometer, and it is all over the place as the magnetic environment of the sun is shifting all around. And this is associated with that sudden shift in the BTBZ here. So, like we say on a daily basis, folks, the magnetic environment can change with absolutely no warning. And that's part of the reason why we have the channel in the first place. To do things like figure out the predictive phenomenon. Here's the Gong 2 data, looking at the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And while still solidly in the South Pole oriented portion of the current sheet, by the way, that's charged up by the South Pole poloidal field. The field that comes out of the South Pole of the Sun is charging that particular plasma, depicted here in red. We don't see a big effect on the B field or anything like that associated with that sunspot, so I'm not expecting it to strengthen. Here is the geospace magnetosphere movie looking at the magnetohydrodynamic pressure, and we're going to see a small uptick at the end. That is the uptick in the solar wind speed. There you see a little bump coming in there around 8:15 Universal Time. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this ramp up a bit throughout the day. Next, we'll look at the geospace ground magnetic perturbations. Delta B, changes in the Earth's B field, yes. As you are living through a magnetic excursion, folks. We see the South Pole creeping into the Indian Ocean. Somewhere out here is probably where the geomagnetic South Pole really is. We see some significant perturbations over the Canadian North Pole, less so over the Siberian North Pole. If you were wondering, yes, there are 2, and the net is somewhere east of Greenland. That's where your compass would point. Welcome to the new moon. It was the newest possible moon at 0.0% when we did show prep. Happy new moon, folks. Now, I'm not a full moon celebrator. I'm a new moon celebrator, and I'm not telling you why. It's a secret. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. Milky Way galaxy team for the win. There's where things will be in 1 week. As the Earth gets even more lonely, all alone on this side of the solar system, all the planets are all out on the other side. As Venus will be its first to make an appearance in the nearby portion. Here's where stuff is above my head, which I'm always interested in. Looks like Cygnus is about to rise. And there's Deneb coming up around 5 o'clock. It's 4:25. Do you know where your constellations are? Check out in-the-sky.org. Make yourself a sky chart, put in your location. Figure out where stuff is above your head, perhaps. Let's do the earthquake rundown. No 6 magnitude quakes over the past 24 hours. We go pretty in-depth into yesterday's quakes, so watch yesterday's Christmas special if you want to hear about the 6 magnitude quakes that have kicked off over the past couple days. There's a reason why we do it every day, because we have to be in a certain kind of a mode in order to get the content into a useful parameter for our viewers. Anyway, I'm going to scroll up the list here. No deep quakes yet. Series of 4s and 5s. Here's nearly a 6. That's a 5.8 out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. One of the most desolate places in the world, folks. And we see 0 deep quakes. So the deep quake event has ended entirely. No deep quakes whatsoever. And I just wanted to note the location of Popocatepetl before we look at the windy.com pressure maps. I've put a little heart here saved it as a favorite, right? It's always interesting to know where Popocatepetl is, right? Well, guess what? There's a webcam. Oh, yeah. There's a webcam. Check it out. The Popocatepetl webcam, and I can see ash coming out of it right now. That does not look like it's the latest, but nonetheless, oh, there we go. 6 minutes ago. Nice. So it looks like there's some ash coming out of Popocatepetl. We'll get to the volcanoes in a moment. First, we're going to look at the pressure maps. By the way, windy.com has a lovely mobile app. It is free, and it is full of the data. If you're a serious weather nerd, put this thing on your mobile device. You will be amazed. Especially if you do something like go on vacation and go look at a volcano. You'll be able to see where the sulfur dioxide is. Incidentally, the dust from Popocatepetl is making it all the way into the Gulf, which is a good thing for the Gulf, as it will seed all sorts of life in the Gulf. Volcanic ash is good for things. It's quite full of nutrients and sulfur. And we love sulfur. We'll get into it at another time. Perhaps we'll talk about methylsulfonylmethane. Anyway, there's where the pressure systems are expected to be going, according to the GFS model. And we'll let that get to about 1 day from when we make the video. That's about tomorrow. Large anticyclone off the coast of the U.S. And I've heard Southern California had a tornado warning. Thanks for the heads up, John. John Kotowski of Ublicity. Volcano rundown includes Mount Aso producing... Whoa, what happened here? Mount Aso producing a plume of ash, I guess. Let me let that refresh. Continued volcanic ash activity. Flight level 6,000 at Mount Aso. Mount Ibu, flight level 7,000. Sanjiangapi, flight level 8,000. Tokono, flight level 7,000. Popocatepetl, 25,000-foot explosive ash plume there. Please don't fly your human-powered aircraft over that. Revenador, explosive activity continues there, producing a 16,000-foot ash plume. Unable to detect anything at Sabancaya. However, please do not pole vault Sabancaya's caldera. What are you doing for New Year's? Would you like to live stream with us? Well, we're considering it. It's only 5 days and 19 hours away. Where will you be? Now, let's talk about where I'd like to be. My goal, this is about a 5-year goal, by the way, is to be at one of the most desolate places in the world, as far west as I can possibly get. Now, the farthest west you can get would be Baker and Howland Islands, 2 tiny uninhabited U.S. possessions. But better yet is Pago Pago. Now, first of all, here's where Baker Island's located, and it is out there. I love the way it has a hermit crab as it's on its flag. And I guess it represents being in between the U.S. and being someplace, I don't know, what is that, Subaru? I don't know what the heck that is. Being between the U.S. and Australia, I guess, is what's going on with that. In the water. Anyway, Baker and Howland Island are associated with the Amelia Earhart mystery, as that is a very, very desolate place, and it's very close to the international date line. And I'm not an expert on Amelia Earhart or anything like that. If you've got a comment about it, please leave it in the comment section on whatever platform you're viewing. Anyway, there's where Howland Island's located, and I think this would actually be my favorite choice, as there appears to be an airstrip on this thing. What say you? Let's charter a flight and go to Howland Island for New Year's. Now, a more reasonable place to go would be Pago Pago, otherwise known as American Samoa. Now, Pago Pago is the capital. And by the way, you can go there with no passport, since it's the United States. The best fishing in the world, the best diving in the world. Probably the best New Year's Eve in the world. Check it out. Pago Pago. That's where I want to go. Perhaps I'll move there entirely to get away from the U.S. East Coast megalopolis. Here's a value-added service. It's the U.S. Doppler radar map. And man, California is getting kaplastered. Let's zoom in. Also, northern Minnesota is getting hammered with snow constantly. Let's see what we get here. Very fast-moving systems here. Dropping a bunch of snow in Southern California. Check it out. It's snowing east of San Diego, according to the radar map, folks. And that system is rotating fast and furiously, like a high-end low pressure. Let's take a look at the water vapor maps right after we look at the lightning. Courtesy lightningmaps.org. Not a lot of lightning happening over there in California. Primary lightning is in the Eastern Mediterranean and the South Atlantic. Let's resubmit that form and look at the water vapor map. We're going to zoom in on that area over California as an atmospheric lake is forming, as well as one on the ground most likely with all the heavy rain. And we're getting warm air in the entire eastern portion of the U.S. You're going to hear global warming, global warming, global warming, global warming. They're not going to tell you about the snow mass balance or anything like that. They're not going to tell you about how glaciation happens. They're going to suggest that carbon dioxide is the planet's temperature control knob, which is complete and utter nonsense. Anyway, there's the atmospheric lake that's actually piling up here. It's going to stagnate, and you can see that heavy counterclockwise rotation there. A very powerful low-pressure system off the coast of Southern California. And let's look at the convergence over Minnesota. Shout out Minnesotans. Please leave a comment if you've cat walleye. I've only ever cat one walleye. It was about 18 inches long at Beltsville Dam in Carbon County, Pennsylvania. Anyway, there's that convergence, and that's largely the cold-warm convergence right there. Everybody south of this dry air is going to experience warm air. You can see it pulling warm air up from the southern regions. And let's continue on here to thank our patrons for being associate producers of the show, as that is where the financial support for this channel comes from, not from YouTube. I know they show you ads, and thanks, Smash Team. We've got plenty more stuff, such as the That Is an Ass and That Is a Hole in the Ground section, where we encourage our viewers, friends and foes, to understand the distinction. Now, we did watch Krampus. We finally got finished watching Krampus The Reckoning, and I like it. It's highly recommended. I think it's brilliant, the way the story is woven. It's a little bit, the ending is a little weird. You may not expect it. I kind of had it figured out before we got to the ending, but that's because my knowledge of demonology and folklore and things like that is a little bit beyond your average viewer, and these films have to be made to be understood. So maybe check that out, Krampus The Reckoning. Today we're going to be watching Krampus the Original. Now, in an effort to help people understand the distinction between their you-know-what and a hole in the ground, we've created a forum. So head to smAsho.org, like this, which will redirect you to the .com. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, folks. If you scroll down, there's a link right there. Click here for the newly unveiled forum. And thanks everybody who has set up an account here. Thanks for the activity. Shout out to Be Stoic. I haven't gotten through doing the forum yet. Let's talk about Douchebags. I've made this a publicly accessible link if you'd like to download this and share it with your friends and foes online. Lance Armstrong, 2 Summer's Eve products, and Chris Carmichael, 4 Douchebags. Who could make you angry enough to have a freaking heart attack? Or maybe 5G has sucked your soul out of your body and put it inside of Aladdin's lamp. I don't know. But don't have a heart attack. We're going to talk about prevention of heart attacks. Let's talk about the negative effects of drinking coffee. Oh, yeah, that's right. There are some. And it's primarily from drinking unfiltered coffee. Now, let's talk about the caffeine. So first of all, unfiltered coffee will raise your cholesterol, your LDLs, and your HDLs. It will raise your blood pressure because there's caffeine. So if you have blood pressure issues, maybe consider half-calf or whatever. Keep in mind, if you're going to be doing physical labor, vigorous exercise, that raises your blood pressure further. Also, homocysteine is derived from unfiltered coffee, which is why we've started filtering our coffee, and that's why the French presses are going by the wayside. We still will keep the French presses to make other kinds of beverages, just not coffee, as the coffee filter paper filters out homocysteine, an amino acid that you don't want. It's associated with all sort of inflammatory markers from Alzheimer's, strokes, heart attacks, atherosclerosis, and more. Coffee is a diuretic, so consider hydrating while you drink coffee. Have a coffee and a water, perhaps at the same time. Caffeine withdrawal seems like a ridiculous thing to me, although you can get things like headache, fatigue, depression, and anxiety if you're used to drinking coffee every day, and then you go cold turkey. Now, I'm not suggesting that there are very many negative effects. Most of the effects of drinking coffee are positive, but understand that there are both. Most things are a double-edged sword, and we've left links to the "Could the way you make your coffee impact your health?" story from Bicycling Magazine. Talk about another human health story here, which we did cover yesterday. What if you only paid doctors when you were healthy? Now, this is a normal thing, which is practiced for ages in China, Taiwan, South and North Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and Hong Kong. It's been practiced for 3,000 years. And what does this do? This prevents you from needing health insurance because you're paying your doctor unless you get sick. Then you stop paying, creating a financial incentive for your doctor to actually cure you instead of keep you sick with a bunch of nonsensical drugs that create more symptoms and cause more prescriptions to get filled, and so on and so on. What a vicious cycle that is. Get out of it. And we've also left links to the homocysteine blood tests. The homocysteine blood test page here on eMedicine Health, talking about homocysteine, the effects of it, as well as the ways to mitigate it, which is primarily with B vitamins and folic acid. So read about that if you like. Let's talk about the benefits of intermittent fasting. Now, we started doing the keto diet, and while I'm not a strict keto diet because endurance athletes, to go maximum intensity, we still need some carbohydrate. But that aside, intermittent fasting has huge health benefits. The military practices it now. Special forces have been practicing it for decades. And this metabolic factor has massive effects because ketones are one of the most powerful antioxidants that there are. And this will reduce the speed at which you age, folks. Believe it or not, intermittent fasting. So it'll increase your cognitive performance, cardiovascular health, your physical performance, as a fat crash is not anything like a carb crash. And I'm not going to get super in-depth into it. It affects your blood sugar levels, which affects diabetes and obesity. Also, it limits tissue damage and inflammation, improves surgical outcomes. And we've left links to this article also where we got this image from. It's another SciTech Daily. Gotta love SciTech Daily. This one is a Johns Hopkins study, and that was a Johns Hopkins graphic. Shout out to Johns Hopkins. One of the things that the ketogenic diet did for us is that it caused us to totally change the type of carbs that we would consume. Now we consume only really high quality carbs. In other words, if we're going to have pasta, we try to have organic pasta. It's a great thing, folks. Try it out. One meal a day. You will may be surprised at how amazingly easy it is and how stable everything will become in terms of your nutrition, your energy levels, and so on. Let's talk about human-powered vehicles. First, let's talk about gravity cars, gravity racers. It looks like somebody recently broke the record here at over 100 miles per hour. I was watching some videos yesterday about it. Apparently, gravity racing gets pretty serious. And These guys aren't screwing around. Also, major auto manufacturers like Porsche, Aston Martin, and so on. Doug Anderson reached 84 miles per hour in a gravity racer. Anyway, let's talk about Daedalus. Here's an image of Daedalus, the mythical Greek figure who built wings out of wax and feathers, along with his son Icarus, who flew too close to the sun. The wax melted, and he fell into the ocean and died. Let's talk about human-powered vehicles. Now, first of all, this is the current world record holder in 3 different things. The Milan tricycle. These things go about 80 miles an hour. These are fully fared bicycles, recumbent bicycles, which is the most common type of human-powered vehicle. You see these things all around. Now, we don't race these because they don't comply with the rules of the UCI or US cycling. But there are racing leagues. It's the World Human-Powered Vehicle Association. Also, we've got these water HPVs. They're hydrofoils. Apparently, the MIT's Decavitator is the 100-meter record holder. You can also buy these things, like the Sea Cycle, the human-powered catamaran with propeller drive. Extremely efficient. Seems like an amazing boat for me. Makes me want to go fishing. There's also human-powered submarines, rail cars. But let's talk about Daedalus, the MIT project right here, pedaled by the Greek Olympic bicyclist. And check this out. We watched this video yesterday. What an amazing story. This is the world record holder for human-powered flight. Let's play a clip and tease you so you watch a video.
Emergency support, and to keep the pathway clear.
There he is. He's flying across the Aegean Sea from the island of Crete to the island of Santorini, completing a 70-plus mile flight in a pedal-powered plane that weighed about 70 pounds. And thanks for tuning in, Smash viewers, Smash team, etc. Stay tuned for some bonus features. Again, please check out smashomash.org and go to the forum. And thanks again those who viewed on Twitch, as our numbers have been skyrocketing over there. And we are frozen just like the Arctic sea ice. And thanks again, patrons. Please consider becoming a patron if you aren't already. Patreon.com/smashamash, the real source of funding. We do have a $1 and a $9.99 tier. And again, stay tuned for some bonus features. Talking about the Milky Way's magnetic field orientation. And notice the way the fields align here. We've got negative magnetic fields over here around the Cygnus arm, positive fields out toward the Vela Pulsar and Geminga, which are out here on the right side of the galactic plane, and then heavily mixed up fields here in the middle. But you notice that there is an order to this, the way these fields are oriented. That's all I'm saying, folks. Magnetic fields run the universe. And here is the most detailed image we've seen. This is done by taking radiograms of many, many pulsars in the Milky Way galaxy and measuring their particulate motion. So that's how we get the magnetohydrodynamics of the Milky Way. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of radio telescopes, such as this massive array over Europe. This is the LOFAR, the low frequency array. There's another one being built in Australia right now, the Murchison Wide Field Array, which should give us even more detail about this. So these are some more big things happening in the world of astronomy. So look for more stuff coming out about that soon. Here's the current colorized magnetogram. We'll show you the magnetic environment of Sunspot 2754. There it is. And it looks like it's breaking down. There really only is one umbra. It's associated with this North Pole field right here, shown in green and blue. And let's go look at 2753. That one is still a beta class, as it has two umbral fields this one South Pole oriented, and this one North Pole oriented. That's something to keep an eye on throughout the day. Let's take a look at the 304 angstroms 48-hour movie here. As there was some filamentary activity in the center of the disk that may be suspended out pointing toward Earth right now, as we showed you earlier in the beginning of the video. And again, keep an eye on stereo A's coronagraph, as there could be a coronal mass ejection forming here. And remember, no X-ray are required. You don't need to see a solar flare to see a coronal mass ejection. The sun is perfectly capable of flinging plasma out into space with no warning and with no X-ray flares. I would note there is a filament up in this area, and it looks like it probably collapsed back onto the chromosphere, as we don't really see anything in the stereo A coronagraph. So anyway, there's the view from 304 angstroms. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We're out. Thanks for everybody who tuned into the live premiere event on YouTube. Best wishes. Don't forget to stare at the sun. Don't forget to not drink, and if you do drink, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and that atherosclerosis absent from your veins. And now I must leave the Smash Tower.